This is Angel from Stewberries, and today I'm going to show you to make these easy acrylic photo frames. Here are some of the supplies you're going to need to complete this project. I'm using quick dry stain in weathered gray, 2 foam brushes, 1 for each color, some makeup wedges, gloves, white paint, black paint, and I'm using 813 stencil vinyl and some contact paper to transfer my design onto the wood. Here I'm using my Ryobi to cut a channel into my 2x4 that has just had the sides cut off. I want to set my blade to about halfway in depth and about a 15-degree angle. I'm going to cut a channel to the middle of the board, and then I'm going to move my guide over about a blade's worth to go ahead and make the channel wider. Here you can see that I have went 2 times, but I actually went back and did it 2 more times for 4 total so that I had a thicker channel in my 2x4. Here I'm going into Adobe Illustrator. I am creating a simple rectangle to have the Glowforge cut out so that I can have the pieces of acrylic that sandwich my picture. In the Glowforge software, I am just duplicating the squares because I'm going to make 3 photo frames, and so I need 6 rectangles. If you don't have a Glowforge, Home Depot sells a little cutter that you can use to cut your acrylic into rectangles. Here's a Glowforge, just cutting out those rectangles. And here are my 4 by 6 inch pieces. So you can see there that I went through the saw 4 times instead of 2 times like I showed earlier in the video. Just a very small amount of that weather gray stain into a bowl, and then I'm going to just very quickly paint all the surfaces of my wood block to get it coated with the stain. Here I painted the bottom, but later on I found out that was not necessary because you can't see it. And then I try to just get the corners of the slot that we created, but you don't need to worry about getting all the way down into the bottom of the base because you won't be able to see that part once you sandwich in the acrylic and the photo pieces. You just want to make sure to cover all the block and the sides because that's the part that if somebody's coming from the side will be able to see that. And then here I'm just taking a paper towel and I am just rubbing off all the excess stain. And I'm going to keep on rubbing until it is no longer shiny. You can see I'm just wiping the bottom of my table because my block kept picking up new stain and I was trying to get it dry. So you just want to keep rubbing until it's no longer shiny or sticky. And here I'm just flipping my paper towel to a new spot so that I can just make sure it is completely dry. And you'll be able to see that on the bottom of my paper towel, I'm picking up very little stain there. So these are completely dry and ready to move on to the next step. I'm using my white paint. This is just cheap sample of white paint that I got from Home Depot, and I'm using a foam brush to dry brush strokes of the white paint. You can see that it's not transferring a lot of paint. You just want to kind of give it a dusting of white paint on all the surfaces that you're going to see. I used my paper there on the side to just take off the excess white paint that was on my foam brush because you really want a light coat of white if you're going to get the same look as me. If you like more white, then add more. I like to really focus on the ends and like a lighter coat in the middle. You can see like I try to frame all the ends kind of with white paint. I just like the way that looks, but you can focus on whichever part that you like. I don't focus on the ends of the board too much because they're a lot rougher than the face of the piece of wood, but I do like to put a little white paint on there so they don't look completely solid gray. And this works with any color stain. If your house is primarily browns, then you can use a brown stain underneath. You don't have to add the white paint over top to kind of give it that antique or vintage look. You can just leave it solid if you like. These are totally customizable. Here I use my Cameo to cut out 3 words, and I'm just using a scrap piece of wood to go ahead and make sure that it's connected to the contact paper. Like I said, I'm using 813 stencil vinyl, and that is just shelf contact paper over top to help me transfer the design. And I'm just eyeballing about the middle of the block. I really like where that one went, so I'm just going to peel it up gently and go ahead and place it again. This 813 stencil vinyl allows you to do that maybe once or twice. If you don't have a Cameo, you can hand letter the words on there, or you could print it out on your home printer and use a pencil to kind of trace it on there and then fill it in with paint or marker. I'll just use my scraper tool to make sure that the stencil vinyl is completely stuck down to the wood block because you don't want any bleeds. If the stencil is not fully stuck down in any places, you'll get bleeding through the front of your block. And I'm using just a very small amount of black paint and a makeup sponge to go ahead and tap the design through the stencil. You want to use up and down motions, not side to side, because if you smush the paint, it's going to squeeze under your stencil and then create bleeds. You won't get a crisp image when you pull it through. So up, down, up, down. And I didn't wait for this to dry. I just went ahead and pulled it off while it was still wet. This paint does dry pretty quick, but I just pull it while it's wet. And then I'm just using a pair of tweezers to get in there and pull out the insides of my letters. And there you go. So here I'm going to go start and put the pull the cover off of the acrylic, and this is the point where my camera dies. All I simply did was pull the cover paper off of the acrylic and sandwich my photo, which is a 4x6 photo that I ordered from Walgreens, in between the 2 pieces of acrylic. And there you have it. They are fully changeable acrylic photo frames that you can use to display all kind of photos. If you like this video, please go ahead and subscribe and like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.